We'll start simply and create a blanket stitch that uses one tile to repeat. When drawing pattern brushes, it is best practice to draw the smallest possible repeat sequence in order to create the tile. This will not only make the repeat pattern created by the brush more accurate, but it will also save you time. I'm going to select my pen tool, and then I'm going to draw a vertical line and then a curved, more horizontal line overlapping it. Next, I'll use the selection tool to select both lines. I'm going to give them a stroke weight of 8 points and rounded cap ends. Using the width tool, I'm going to increase the width of each of my strokes at one end. I'm going to go ahead and open up the brush panel. If it's not docked in the panel dock, you can find it under the Windows menu. Now my tile is a bit big at the moment, so the first thing I'm going to do is scale it down. I'm going to select both paths with the selection tool, and then I'm going to double click on the scale tool as I want to check that the option Scale, Stroke and Effects is selected. So we'll leave it as a 10% uniform scale and then click OK. Using the selection tool, I can now drag my tile onto the brush panel. I'm going to select Pattern Brush and then click OK. The Pattern Brush options now come up, and I can make any changes to the settings and see those changes take effect in the preview here. So first thing, let's call it Blanket Stitch. I can now define up to 5 tiles for the repeat sequence. My tile has been automatically added as the side tile, which is correct. The only other two I need to set in this instance are the outer and inner corners. Illustrator automatically provides a number of options for me to select from to build the corner tiles. I'm going to select the auto-centered option for both the inner and outer corners. I'm going to leave the other settings as they are and then click OK. So there we have it, a blanket stitch brush. Let's just quickly draw a line with the pen tool and then apply our new brush to see what it looks like. Perfect! I don't actually need the tile artwork on the artboard anymore, so I can go ahead and delete that. The blanket stitch brush we just created used a very simple tile for the repeat. However, often tiles are not that straightforward to create. They often require a little bit of work to make sure the left and right edges of the tile form a perfect repeatable sequence. This time we'll create a basic line of top stitching that requires a further step to make sure the left and right sides of the tile repeat properly. First, I'm going to create a basic shape using the ellipse tool. I'm then going to give the ellipse a black fill but no stroke. Next, I'm going to rotate the stitch shape not quite horizontally. So we'll use the selection tool for this. I now need to make 2 copies. To make the first, I'll drag it out with the Shift, Control and Alt key, or for Mac users, the Shift, Command and Option key. As I want the second copy to be the exact same distance, I use the Ctrl+D or Command+D key to repeat the copy. I'm just going to drag these 3 objects onto the brush panel and make a quick new pattern brush. I'm then going to apply it to the path we have here, as I want to show you what happens if we just leave it as it is. Whilst it doesn't look too bad on first glance, if we examine it a bit closer, we can see that the gaps between the stitches are not actually even. This is because the left and right side of my tile are not in sync with one another to make a perfect repeat sequence. To rectify this, I need to adjust the edges of my tile. First, I need to show the rulers and make some guidelines. So let's go to View, Rulers, and Show Rulers. Next, I'm going to select the left stitch so I can see where the middle of its bounding box is. Then I'm going to drag a guideline out from the side ruler and place it in line with a middle point on the bottom of the bounding box. I'm then going to repeat this with the right hand stitch. The guidelines now mark the edges of where the tile should be in order to give us a perfect repeat. To get Illustrator to recognise this in the tile, we need to draw a rectangle with no fill and no stroke, snapping to the guidelines and placed behind the artwork. So let's take the rectangle tool and draw that rectangle. And then we'll right click and arrange centre back. I'm then going to use the selection tool to drag a selection box over the 3 stitches and the rectangle we have just drawn, and I'm going to drag them onto the brush panel. So let's create a pattern brush, click OK, and I'm going to call the brush Top Stitch. I'll set the inner and outer corner tiles to none, and then I'm going to click OK. Now if we apply this new version of the brush to the path, we'll get a perfect repeat. And you can see now that the gaps between the stitches are completely even. Now I kept the brush size quite large so you could see the repeat easily. And although we can always change the scale of the brush when we use it, this is pretty big to be starting with. So let's delete the 2 top stitching brushes we have. And I'm going to create the pattern brush again after scaling the artwork down. I'm going to hold down the Shift key to constrain and just drag the artwork smaller. And then we drag it back to the brush panel, create a pattern brush, OK, call it Top Stitch, and set the outer corner tile here to none and click OK. So let's now apply this one to the path. OK, much better. I'll delete the artwork for this brush as we don't actually need it anymore.